Hello and welcome to another episode of the Startup Lantern, a show for all of you budding entrepreneurs out there, especially the people who are thinking about doing a new startup in the cybersecurity space. If you've ever thought about doing a startup in the technology sector, we'd really like you to be able to take advantage of some of the experience that we bring to the table and maybe sidestep some of the normal pitfalls that often new entrepreneurs end up stumbling across. So please feel free to like and subscribe below. And if you have any questions about this or any other episode, please feel free to go ahead and put them in the comments below. I'd like to be able to answer them, or again, anybody in our community is contribute as well. So as we go through this series, we're going to be talking about some lessons learned and give you some good advice in terms of how to go about starting your new startup. But please understand that we're not lawyers. We're not even pretending to be one on TV. This is just a couple of people who have been through the process a number of times and would like to be able to share some of our experiences. So my name is Druce McFarlane. I'm going to be one of your co-hosts. I've been a serial entrepreneur, done a lot of startups in my time, and again, hope to be able to share some of that experience with you.
And I'm Jon Druce. Welcome to the Startup Lantern. My history has been involved in a number of startups as well. A little bit different viewpoint than Druce, but hopefully together we can share some really exciting and some challenging experiences we've been through in our lives. So we look forward to jumping into today's episode.
Yes, in today's topic, we're going to be talking about how you go about the process of raising money. So in the last episode, we talked a little bit about going out there and finding angel investors and some of the process of doing that. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about the where the money hits the road, of how you actually go about securing some of that money and where you go about looking for it. So please join us for the episode.
So welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about fundraising. And I guess the first and most important part is we're not really going to be talking about selling cookies or popcorn or raffle tickets today. We're going to be talking about how do you actually raise the money from maybe angel investors and other sources to help launch your company. We want to talk a little bit about where that money comes from. What's the best approach as you start putting together your process of going out to raise that money? Who do you talk to? What kind of things do you say? And basically, how do you get started? Because raising money is probably the hardest thing you do as a startup entrepreneur. And with that, Druce, let's jump in.
Sounds good. So let's start off with when you actually start doing the fundraising process. And that's actually an interesting thing. So we talked a little bit about this in previous episodes. The most important thing is if you're out there talking to investors, they can smell desperation all around you when you're in there. So you don't want to go into the grocery store when you're hungry, and you don't want to go out and fundraise when you're looking to make payroll. So the most important thing is you start fundraising before you actually need it. You want to make sure that this process invariably, even when you've had a lot of experience in it, it takes longer than you would ever possibly imagine it's going to end up taking. If they feel like there's some sort of a level of desperation, they're just going to draw that process out a little bit longer, because time's on their side. They have the ability to just kind of slow roll this thing in so that they can get better terms from you as they go along. So if you go in there before you actually need it, that's the best time to be fundraising. Is you want to be very clear about that and be doing it in a nice, calm environment before things actually start getting desperate.
Druce, I guess one of the questions that immediately comes to mind, and in all of the startups I've been through, I know it is the question that's weighing heaviest on the mind of that person who started the company, is like, how do I make payroll? How do I keep the lights on? How do I pay the people that I've hired to help bring this together? Why do we not talk about that in front of the folks we're raising funds from? And why is it important, I guess, to kind of put on a different personality, different air?
So the assumption is always going to be, it's obvious that you need the round of funding to make payroll. That's an obvious reason for why you want to be able to do it, but it can't be the exclusive reason. So when you go in there and you start talking about what this round of funding is for, it's got to be about a higher level than just I need the company to be able to have a little bit longer of a runway to be successful. It's got to be like, we want to raise this round of funding so that we can build out the prototype, or we have a prototype and we need to productize this so that we have a minimum viable product, or maybe we're at that point and that money is going to be used to build out sales and marketing because so far we've built all the infrastructure for being able to create the product, but we don't have any way of being able to take it to market. So there's always got to be some inherent reason other than just making payroll for what you're going to do with that money. They want to know that that money is going toward this very specific thing. So whenever you look at any round of funding, there's always some sort of a topic of why that round is coming and why is it coming now.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about what to do in preparation for fundraising. How do you get started? How do you go out there and get that first round of funding? And really trying to go cold call is not the best option. You're not going to find yourself out there in front of customers begging for money, because that's exactly what you look like. You need to take an approach of looking through what your peers have done. Find some others in the industry who have started a company. Maybe you're a little bit ahead of you in that environment. Use their contacts, talk with them, network with your fellow entrepreneurs, maybe other CEOs of some startup companies. If it's not the CEO, maybe you know the CIO or the CTO of those companies. But network with those folks. Find out, where did they go to get their funding? Who did they talk to? Who turned them down? That may actually be just as important as who they did get money from, because your idea might be just different enough that it is of interest to that particular angel investor.
Yeah, and you'll find often in these circumstances that if you've ever been in the circumstance where you've gone on LinkedIn and you've tried to link up with somebody for the purpose of sales, nobody wants to link in with you. But if you're a CEO trying to link in with another CEO and there's no obvious reason other than the fact that you're trying to network, people actually like to network. They like to have these contacts. They like having other people. They like having their sort of dating myself with this phrase, but their Rolodex kind of full with those different contact information. You never know when those things are going to end up having. So no matter what your experience has been in the past with trying to network with people using things like LinkedIn, it's always a lot easier when you are reaching out to a peer or you're even reaching out to a mentor with no presumption of saying, okay, would you like to buy my product afterwards? As long as there's not that on the table, you'll see that people are a lot more comfortable with linking in with you and sharing their experiences. Again, people like building up those types of networks, and you'll find it a lot easier than what you may have in times prior to that.
Druce, I desperately want to ask you if you still have a Rolodex, but I think the more important question today might be, how many months or maybe years has it been since you actually handed out a business card?
Well, it's funny that you should mention this because I actually have this thing here. It's an NFC card that has a URL that points to my virtual card. So I have this one card now, and I can just like tap it on people's phone, and they can have all access to my contact info. So that's ended up being a lot easier. I don't like killing trees for business cards. It doesn't make sense unless you're traveling to Asia. If you're traveling to Asia, all bets are off. Get yourself a box of business cards. But domestically, there's not that need anymore. One of the nice things about going out and talking to your peers and talking to other, if you can find a mentor, that's great. If not, finding another peer in an organization that's kind of similar to your size, maybe a little bit 6 months ahead of you, they're going to have all these contacts of all these angels or even venture capitalists already established, and they're going to be able to share with you, these are people who are probably going to be a good fit. If you talk to this guy over there, he's really big on XYZ. So we talked in one of our first episodes about the 3 Ps. Your other peers out there, the other CEOs out there, are going to be able to do the best job of telling you, my experience with this person over here is that they're more of a products person, or they're more of a plan person, or don't bother talking to this guy over here because he always ends up interacting with the exact same people over and over and over again. And if you're not part of that clique, you're just not going to be able to get a meeting with him. That group that you're going to be able to start associating yourself with is going to be a really valuable resource in terms of who to talk to and how and what their important points are. And going forward. So all that goes toward trying to set up, like, who are you supposed to be talking to? The other thing that your peers can do is they can kick down some doors and actually do some referrals and say, I'm going to make the introduction to this person for you. And to Jon's point earlier on, if you're just doing cold calling, dialing for dollars, calling up VCs, asking for appointments, that is not going to be nearly as effective of if somebody has just funded turns around and calls up their VC and says, oh, by the way, have you talked to this guy over here? He's got something really good. That's going to jumpstart a conversation a lot faster than trying to cold call somebody who has no idea who you are. So that's definitely the best way of going forward. And then just have your ducks in a row when you're ready to have that conversation.
Bruce, a lot of our conversation and a lot of our series is really going to be based around the concept of helping entrepreneurs as they move toward that venture capitalist meeting, as they look to get venture capitalists. But in the early stages right here, it's really important that you really don't try to focus on the venture capitalist money. Because if you can go the angel investor route, you have a lot less strings attached as you move into Series A, Series B of your funding. A lot more opportunity to do things that maybe you'd be restricted if you had that venture capitalist from the very beginning. As I understand it, if you start in Series A with a venture capitalist and they are not the ones that fund your Series B, that doesn't necessarily bode well or look very good for your company in the long run. So those are the kind of things you want to avoid. And if you can find those venture capitalists by going through your mentors, by going through other CEOs, by really networking within your own industry, you have a lot more opportunity to grow and a lot more flexibility to build your company the way you want it in the early stages.
Absolutely. No, it's you make a very good point there about it seems almost counterintuitive because you would think that a successful company would be best sort of suited to go out there and have some sort of a high named, well recognized venture capitalist, but that can be the kiss of death because again, it's all about leverage, and there's that saying that you've heard on the show a couple of times that VCs are sharks, but if they fund you, they're your sharks. Well, here's the exception that proves the rule. Like when they're going in for that second series, they're going to use whatever leverage that they can. So if they know that they can devastate you by not participating in your Series B after they've done your Series A, they know nobody's going to want to touch you if that company doesn't go out and participate in Series B again, because it means that they've lost all faith in you. You really want to start small in most circumstances and not just try to ring the bell first round and have that well-known VC sort of lead your second round. So take your time, get the attractive angel money first, and then you can graduate to swimming with the sharks.
One of the things that you're going to need when you get ready to go talk to these folks about money is a pitch deck. Now, you probably heard the term an elevator pitch. That's, that you need that as well, probably just to actually get the meeting to go talk about the money. But when you sit down in front of someone and you actually are asking them about funding to invest in your company, you're going to need a presentation that shows this person exactly what you intend to do with that money, how you intend to use it. But what's really, really important, and we're going to talk more about this in the next few moments, is how you set up that presentation. It's critically important that you remember this is not presenting your technology. This is trying to sell somebody on the idea of why they should invest in you.
Absolutely, and with as important as it is, for you to have a pitch deck, and it is vital that and the business plan, etc. Think about your pitch deck and your business plan as almost being kind of like when you're out there doing a job search and you've got your resume out there. You really, if it's an important job, you really want to customize it for the audience that it's going to. Same thing with the pitch deck. The VC or whoever the person who's going to be who you're hoping to get financing from is going to have their important hot buttons, and you're going to want to make sure that your pitch deck reflects that audience pretty well. And as such, I'm going to make a rather odd series of suggestions here, which are, even though it's vitally important that you have that pitch deck ready, you have the business plan ready, don't be too eager to send it out. Especially, don't send it out in advance of a meeting. If you can get that meeting ahead of time and just have a casual conversation first, you're going to be able to collect more information about what they are looking to actually see inside that pitch deck. You really want the pitch deck, once you've delivered that, to be, sort of geared around, this is the final icing on the cake for, like, they're already sold. They just need to be able to make the justification for being able to do it. The longer that you can push that off, the better. But have it definitely well thought out in advance. But if you can start having some of those conversations, that will allow you to go back and refine your pitch deck to really be more laser focused toward the person that you're trying to collect the financing from.
One of the things I really love about the concept of the pitch deck is it's so different from what you typically do in business in creating a PowerPoint. Usually we use PowerPoint to go and sell an idea, to sell a concept. With a pitch deck, you're actually kind of flipping the script a little bit. The goal is to to get your audience to convince you that they should invest in your business. You want them to believe that you have something golden that they need to be involved in. And if they don't invest now, they're missing an opportunity. And it's a very different script than we typically use, presentation decks for.
Absolutely. And it's, kind of going to one of the topics that we started off this conversation with, of not wanting to appear hungry. No matter where you are in the process of financing or funding, the attitude, if not the actual language that you should be using with them, the attitude should be, we're right now, we're just kind of in the research phase. We haven't gone out there yet, or maybe you have, but really what you pretty much, you think that this entire round is already full, but you're still going out there and talking to some other people just to make sure, because we can always maybe open up for a little bit larger of a round than we were originally anticipating if the right person came around. But basically making it so that it's not coming across as, we need your money because we're going to have to start laying people off next week if we don't. It's more like, we've got all the money that we need, but you're an important person, and if we'd potentially consider opening the round for a little bit larger of a round if you were interested, but I'd have to convince some people in the back end. That's really the attitude that you need to be walking in there with. And again, going right back to the beginning of this conversation, that all starts with making sure that you start as early as you can, because again, if you're kind of staring down the barrel of not being able to make payroll, you're not going to be able to do that very convincingly. So as we close this out, I just want to remind you guys what I've reminded you of to begin with, that we are not attorneys. One of the best friends that you can make during this process is to have a good attorney that's going to be able to guide you through this process. There's lots involved around the legalities of who you can solicit money from and how that all works, that we're not going to be able to begin to touch about in a 10-minute podcast. So go out there, definitely do that. But we want to definitely encourage you, if you have any questions about what we talked about here, to go ahead and leave them in the comments. If you think that this has been valuable, please like and subscribe. If you know anybody that's going through this process and thinking about doing their own startup, forward this off to them, or go ahead and share this with other people, because we're trying to start up that community of like-minded people and trying to get as many people part of the conversation as possible.
And as we dig deeper and deeper into the concept of starting up a company, there's so many great topics we're looking forward to covering with you guys in the future. Just a couple that we hit on just briefly today: the concept of how to develop a mentor. We just brushed by that, but the concept is a really powerful piece to helping you start your company. Having someone out there who's been there, done that, can mentor you through the process. And then also digging much deeper into the process of creating the pitch deck, what that's going to look like. So be looking forward to some great future episodes as we dig deeper and deeper into the concepts of starting up your own technical startup company. We look forward to hearing from you. And as Druce said, please subscribe, like us below, and more importantly, join in the conversation, because the more we hear from you, the better this podcast gets.